The quiet of space was shattered by a sudden, eerie transmission that blasted across every communication channel. The source was unmistakable: alien. The Zrax, an ancient and highly advanced race known for their ruthless conquests, had made their presence known in a way no one could ignore. Their voice was cold, commanding, and terrifying as it echoed across Earth's frequencies. "We are the Zrax." The voice boomed, chilling every listener to their core. "You, humanity, are an infection in the galaxy, a threat to our empire. Your existence is no longer acceptable. Surrender or face complete annihilation. We will not wait long." The transmission abruptly cut off, leaving a haunting silence in its wake. The message had been brief but powerful. The aliens made it clear: humanity had no choice but to surrender. The entire galaxy seemed to hold its breath as the words of the Zrax reverberated across every corner of space. Earth had been warned, but the question on everyone's mind was, would they bow to the demands, or would they fight? On Earth, the atmosphere was one of stunned disbelief. Governments scrambled to interpret the transmission, but no one could deny the harsh truth. It was a declaration of war. The Zrax had weapons capable of obliterating entire planets. They were advanced, ruthless, and they saw humanity as nothing more than a pest that needed to be eradicated. Earth's leaders convened in an emergency summit, unsure of how to respond. The weight of the situation was overwhelming. Then, in the face of the unimaginable, a single chilling message was transmitted back into space. It was Earth's response: "We are coming for you." The words were simple, yet they carried the force of a storm. The human race had heard the Zrax threat, and they were not going to bow down without a fight. The message was clear: Earth would not surrender. Humanity had nothing to lose. Back at Earth's military headquarters, the mood was tense, electric with urgency. Captain Alex Turner stood in front of the large digital map, his eyes scanning the screen. The Zrax were on their way, toward Earth, toward humanity's home. The warships they had sent were massive, their technology advanced far beyond anything humanity had ever seen. Yet in that very room, Captain Turner's thoughts were fixed on something far more personal. His younger sister, Emily, had been taken by the Zrax years ago. She had been only a child when they came, abducted in a raid on a colony far from Earth. Since then, Alex had sworn to find her, to bring her home, no matter the cost. Now, with war on the horizon, the stakes had never been higher. His heart raced as the realization hit him like a punch to the gut. This was not just a fight for Earth, it was a fight for his sister's life. The military commanders had been discussing their options, but there was little time. They could send out the Earth fleet, but even with all their preparations, the Zrax had more ships, better weapons, and superior technology. The human race had barely begun to scratch the surface of space exploration, while the Zrax had been traveling the stars for centuries, conquering every race in their path. As Alex listened to the strategy briefing, the weight of the impending battle pressed on him. The tension in the room was thick, the air heavy with unspoken fear. Every soul in that room knew the truth. The Zrax were not a force that could be easily defeated. They had the power to wipe out Earth in an instant. The countdown had begun. Humanity had no choice but to face the Zrax head-on. As the minutes ticked away, Captain Turner couldn't help but think about his sister. The mission had become so much more than just a fight for survival. It was personal. He had to rescue her. He would not leave the battlefield until she was safe. Then, as the countdown continued, an alarm blared across the room, cutting through the silence. The warning lights flashed red. The Zrax had made their move. Without any warning, their warships, cloaked and invisible, emerged from the darkness of space. In an instant, the first wave of Zrax ships opened fire, targeting Earth's outer colonies. The surprise attack was overwhelming. Ships that had been hidden in plain sight, cloaked using technology beyond anything humanity had seen, now unleashed devastating weapons that tore through the colonies like a hot knife through butter. Explosions rocked the stations, debris flew through space, and the screams of the dying echoed across communication channels. The first wave of the invasion was a shocking, brutal demonstration of the Zrak's power. Humanity had not been prepared for this level of destruction. Earth's outer colonies were hit hard, and the people living there had little time to react. The Earth fleet, stationed nearby, had to scramble to respond. Their ships, though equipped with cloaking technology and some advanced weaponry, were no match for the onslaught. As the first wave of destruction rained down, Captain Turner watched the destruction unfold from the war room. His fists clenched, his jaw set in determination. This was the moment he had feared. An attack so sudden, so ruthless, it left no time for escape. But in the face of this overwhelming force, something within Alex stirred. The fear, the shock, the disbelief, it all turned into a cold, burning anger. Humanity had been warned, but it would not be wiped out without a fight. The Zraks may have had the upper hand in technology, but they didn't understand the true power of humanity. Resilience. Alex Turner looked around at the faces of the men and women in the room. They were all thinking the same thing. It's time to fight back. The Earth Fleet's commanders ordered the immediate mobilization of all available ships. They had no choice. The Zraks had drawn first blood, but humanity would not go quietly into the night. Earth's forces began to assemble, preparing for the retaliatory strike. The fleet would need every advantage it could get, and they would have to strike fast and hard. The Zraks were not invincible. They were powerful, yes, but their arrogance would be their downfall. Humanity, for all its flaws, had one thing the Zraks didn't: a burning will to survive. Alex's thoughts were racing, but his resolve remained steady. He would fight. He would save his sister, and he would lead the charge to push the Zraks back, no matter the odds. The invasion had begun. The war for Earth had started, and humanity was ready to show the galaxy what it meant to mess with them. The hum of Earth's fleet reverberated in the depths of space, the ships ready for their first engagement against the Zraks. Captain Alex Turner stood at the helm of his command ship, his eyes locked onto the vast expanse of space in front of him. The stars blinked like distant sentinels, and the Earth fleet was positioned in a defensive formation. Despite the overwhelming odds, there was an undeniable sense of resolve among the crew. Humanity's survival depended on this fight. The Zraks, confident in their technological superiority, had launched their first wave of attacks without hesitation. Their ships were massive, armored, and armed with weapons that could disintegrate anything in their path. But they underestimated humanity's ability to adapt and fight back. Earth's fleet, though technologically inferior at first glance, had been secretly developing new technologies in preparation for this very moment. Cloaking devices, AI-guided weapons, and railguns capable of piercing the toughest armor. Humanity was ready. The battle began with a deafening explosion as the Zraks fired their first barrage of energy beams. The shockwaves tore through space, and Earth's ships were immediately caught in the crossfire. For a moment, the fleet seemed to falter under the pressure. The Zraks were ruthless, their ships swarming like locusts, attacking in perfect unison. But then, something unexpected happened. Humanity's fleet, instead of retreating, shifted positions with surprising speed. A fleet of Earth ships activated their cloaking devices and disappeared into the void of space. The Zraks, not expecting such a tactic, were momentarily thrown off balance. They began to search frantically for the hidden ships, but it was already too late. From the darkness of space, Earth's advanced ships struck with precision, launching railgun projectiles that cut through the alien armada's defenses like a hot knife through butter. The first strike was a success. The Zrak's flagship took a direct hit, its shields flickering before collapsing entirely. The massive warship, once considered invulnerable, exploded in a brilliant flash, sending debris scattering through space. The human fleet, although still outgunned, had dealt a significant blow. The Zraks, momentarily stunned, regrouped quickly, but the damage was done. Captain Turner watched as his fleet adapted to the battle. Small stealth fighter crafts, hidden by cloaking devices, darted in and out of the fray, taking down enemy fighters and creating chaos within the Zrak ranks. The Zraks, initially confident in their victory, were now forced to rethink their strategy. Humanity had taken the first step in proving that they would not go down without a fight. But it wasn't just the technology that was giving Earth's fleet an edge. It was their tactical intelligence. The Zraks, accustomed to battling primitive civilizations, had never faced a force that thought outside the box like humans did. Earth's commanders were using guerrilla tactics, hitting the Zraks where it hurt and then retreating before they could retaliate. It wasn't a conventional war, but it was working. The Zraks were slowly being pushed back. Amidst the chaos of the battle, Alex's thoughts remained clear. His mission was simple: protect Earth at all costs and find his sister. But the battle was more personal now. He could feel the weight of every moment, every decision, because he knew that every life lost brought him closer to a dark reality. If the humans lost, he would never find Emily. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Bonner, was at his side, providing updates and keeping the fleet coordinated. Bonner, a seasoned veteran, was calm under pressure, always looking for the next move in the fight. "Captain, we've got a few of their cruisers on the ropes, but we need to focus on their command ship. It's still operational, and if we don't take it down, they'll regroup and counterattack." Alex nodded, his focus unwavering. "We're not stopping. Take out their command ship, and the rest will fall." Bonner gave a sharp salute and moved to relay the orders. As the battle raged on, Alex couldn't help but think about the people on the ground, the innocent civilians in the colonies who had no choice in this war. They were counting on him, on humanity, to protect them. That thought pushed him forward. As the battle intensified, we were introduced to another key player, Dr. Rook, a brilliant scientist and weapons developer who had been working tirelessly to give Earth's fleet an edge in the fight. She had been one of the leading minds behind the development of the cloaking devices and AI-guided weapons that were proving to be so effective against the Zraks. But there was something about Dr. Rook's involvement that didn't sit right with some members of the crew. Lieutenant Bonner had known Dr. Rook for years, but recently, his suspicions had grown. Rook's expertise was undeniable, but there were whispers about her past. Specifically, there were rumors that she had once been involved with the Zraks, though no one had concrete proof. Alex didn't know if those rumors were true, but something about Rook's calm demeanor during the heat of battle seemed off. She never seemed shaken, even when things were at their worst. Still, Alex trusted her. For now, there were bigger concerns at hand, but if the war dragged on, questions about loyalty would need to be answered. Earth couldn't afford any weak links. The next phase of the battle was even more brutal. The Zraks, enraged by their initial losses, began to fight back with ferocity. Their ships, once graceful and precise, now fought like wild beasts, their weapons firing indiscriminately. The human fleet held its ground, but it was clear that they were outnumbered. Every ship, every fighter, every piece of technology was being pushed to its limits. Alex could see the exhaustion in his crew's faces. They were fighters, but even the most seasoned soldiers could only handle so much. Bonner's voice came over the comms again. "Captain, we've lost another ship. They're pushing us back. We need reinforcements, or this fight is over." Alex clenched his jaw. "We're not backing down. If we have to fight to the last man, we will." Just as things seemed bleak, a new weapon, one of Dr. Rook's creations, activated. A massive energy pulse shot out from one of Earth's ships, hitting the Zrak's fleet with incredible force. The shockwave destabilized several Zrak ships, sending them into disarray. For the first time in the battle, the Zraks seemed unsure of themselves. Their once indomitable fleet was beginning to crack. But even as the tide of battle seemed to turn in humanity's favor, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that the real fight was just beginning. The Zraks were a formidable enemy, and this was just their opening salvo. There would be more battles, more casualties, And through it all, Alex had one goal: to protect Earth and hopefully find his sister. As the battle raged on, humanity's underdog spirit continued to shine. Outgunned, outmatched, and seemingly outclassed, they fought with everything they had. And with every passing moment, the Zrax were learning the hard way. Humans were not to be underestimated. The battle raged on as the human fleet continued to fight against the Zrax. Earth's forces had gained ground, but the enemy was far from defeated. The warships of both sides danced through the void of space, exchanging deadly blows with incredible force. Yet, amidst the chaos, something more dangerous was unfolding within the human ranks. There was a traitor in their midst, a secret that would change everything. Dr. Kara Rook had been a key figure in humanity's defense against the Zrax. A brilliant scientist, her inventions had given the human fleet a fighting chance. The cloaking devices, AI-guided weapons, and railguns that had turned the tide of battle all bore her signature. But despite her contributions, something about Dr. Rook had always seemed off to Captain Alex Turner. She was too calm, too collected, especially when lives were being lost in the heat of battle. He'd always pushed his doubts aside, choosing to trust her expertise over his suspicions. But as the battle grew fiercer, the truth began to surface in a way no one could ignore. It started when a transmission was intercepted by Earth's intelligence division. A decrypted message, one that Alex had never thought possible, revealed the shocking truth. Dr. Kara Rook had once been a collaborator with the Zrax. She had worked on a Zrak research facility, helping them develop the very weapons that had nearly wiped out entire civilizations. Her knowledge had been instrumental in the Zrak's technological advances. The revelation hit like a thunderclap. The very woman who had helped humanity build the weapons to fight the Zrax was the same one who had helped the Zrax build their arsenal. The irony was almost too much to bear. How could she betray her own people, only to later turn against them when it was too late? And why hadn't she told them? The questions came flooding in, and the answers were elusive. Alex stood on the bridge of his ship, his face tight with anger and disbelief. The crew around him was in shock, murmurs of betrayal swirling through the air. The battle, which had been going in humanity's favor, suddenly seemed secondary. The realization that one of their own had been working with the enemy made everything else feel uncertain. How could they trust Dr. Rook now? But the truth was, Dr. Rook wasn't the enemy anymore. She wasn't the same person she had been when she worked for the Zrax. The guilt of her past weighed heavily on her shoulders, and the countless lives lost because of her research haunted her every waking moment. She had helped the Zrax because she had believed in their cause. But the atrocities committed by the aliens had shaken her to her core. The day she realized the full extent of the Zrax cruelty, the death of innocent civilians, the destruction of entire worlds, she knew she had to make a choice. The guilt of her past was something she could never undo, but helping the humans was her way of redemption. The truth came to light during a crucial battle. The human fleet was about to engage a massive Zrak battalion that had been holding the line in a critical sector. If they could defeat them, they would cripple the Zrak's war efforts for good. But just as the fleet was preparing to launch a full-scale attack, an unexpected transmission from the enemy cut through the comms. Dr. Kara Rook. The voice on the other end hissed, "You think you can escape the consequences of your actions." The crew on the bridge froze. Alex's heart skipped a beat. It was a Zrak transmission. And the voice was unmistakable. It was one of the Zrak commanders, a figure from Rook's past. The words hung in the air like a storm cloud, and the truth hit Alex with the force of a wrecking ball. They had known. The Zrax knew about Rook's betrayal. The crew's reaction was instant. Whispers of distrust spread like wildfire. The first officer, Lieutenant Bonner, looked at Alex, his face grim. "Captain, what do we do now? She's one of them. Can we trust her?" Alex's gaze shifted to Dr. Rook, who stood silently in the corner of the room. Her face was pale, her eyes filled with regret. She had never meant for any of this to happen. The realization that she had played a part in the destruction of countless innocent lives was a burden she carried alone. But she had a chance to make things right, and she wasn't going to let the Zrax win. Not again. "Dr. Rook," Alex said, his voice cold but resolute. "Explain yourself." She stepped forward, her voice barely above a whisper. "I never wanted this. I was forced to help them. They promised me the future of humanity, but instead they used my work to destroy everything I cared about. I had to leave, had to turn my back on them. I had to fight for humanity, for redemption." The words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of her confession. Alex stared at her, torn between the betrayal of her past and the desperate need to trust her for the sake of the mission. His mind raced as the crew waited for his decision. They were in the middle of a battle, and every second counted. But trusting Rook now felt like a gamble. He had to make a choice, and it had to be the right one. "Stay with us, Dr. Rook," Alex said finally. "We need you to help us finish this. You know their weapons better than anyone. But if you betray us again, I'll deal with it." She nodded, her eyes filled with both relief and regret. "I won't betray you again, Captain. I swear it." With that, Alex turned back to the battle. The Zrax had already begun their assault, and the human fleet had to act fast. They couldn't afford to waste any more time. Rook's knowledge of the Zrax's most dangerous weapon, a planet-destroying superlaser, was humanity's only chance to win. The battle resumed with renewed intensity. The Zrax, now aware of Rook's betrayal, fought even harder. Their fleet pressed forward with renewed purpose, attempting to overwhelm the humans with sheer firepower. But humanity wasn't about to give up. The human fleet struck back with every weapon at their disposal, using Rook's insight to disable key Zrax ships. The superlaser, though powerful, was not invulnerable. With Rook's help, Earth's forces managed to infiltrate the Zrax defenses and disable the weapon. In the midst of the chaos, Lieutenant Bonner made a final heroic decision. The Zrax had set a trap for the humans, with a massive fleet lying in wait to destroy them. Bonner, knowing that they didn't have enough time to escape, made a bold move. He led a small team on a suicide mission to take down the Zrax command ship, buying the rest of the fleet the time they needed to retreat. Alex watched helplessly as Bonner's ship was caught in the enemy's crossfire. The explosion rocked the fleet, and Alex felt his heart shatter. Bonner was gone. The man who had fought by his side, who had always been the rock he could rely on, was gone. His sacrifice gave them the time they needed to escape, but it came at a terrible cost. Bonner's death became the turning point in the war. For Alex, it was a personal vow to finish the mission, to ensure that his friend's sacrifice wasn't in vain. He turned to Rook, his resolve stronger than ever. "We finish this," he said. "For Bonner." Rook nodded, her eyes filled with sorrow. "For Bonner," she echoed. As the human fleet regrouped and prepared for the next phase of the war, one thing was clear: this fight was far from over. But with Bonner's sacrifice and Rook's redemption, humanity had a fighting chance, and they would take it, no matter the cost. The final stages of the war had arrived. After years of battling the relentless Zrax, humanity now stood on the precipice of a war-ending showdown. The Zrax, knowing their time was running out, had brought forth their ultimate weapon, a terrifying new AI-driven flagship. This ship was unlike anything humanity had ever seen. It had the power to destroy entire planets with a single shot, and it was now heading toward Earth's last defensive line. The stakes couldn't have been higher. If the Zrax were able to unleash this weapon on Earth, it would mean the end of humanity. But Earth's forces were not about to back down. United despite the shock of Dr. Rook's betrayal and the loss of their friends, the human fleet launched a daring assault on the Zrax homeworld. The Zrax had underestimated humanity, and now they would learn the true power of Earth's will to survive. Alex Turner, the captain who had led his fleet through every battle, now found himself at the forefront of the most critical mission of his life. His mission was simple but dangerous: lead the attack on the Zrax flagship, infiltrate their defenses, and destroy the weapon that could wipe out humanity. This would be the final fight, and it would require everything they had. The battle began in deep space, with Earth's fleet stealthily advancing towards the Zrak's homeworld. The Zraks, confident in their new weapon, were not prepared for the level of cunning humanity was about to unleash. Earth's fleet, despite being technologically inferior in some ways, was equipped with advanced cloaking devices and rapid-fire eye-guided weapons. These cutting-edge technologies had given humanity an edge, allowing them to move undetected and strike with precision. As the two fleets met in the cold vacuum of space, the first wave of attacks lit up the black expanse with explosions. The Zraks, who had once thought of themselves as the supreme power in the galaxy, were caught off guard. They quickly realized that humanity was no longer the easy target they had once believed. The battle was intense. Alex's fleet launched wave after wave of attacks on the Zrak ships, using their cloaking technology to sneak up on the alien forces before unleashing rapid-fire strikes with their eye-guided weapons. Despite the overwhelming odds, humanity's forces pushed forward, aiming to breach the Zrak flagship's defenses. But it wasn't easy. The flagship's defenses were like nothing Earth had ever encountered, a wall of energy shields and automated weapon systems that tore through the human ships with brutal efficiency. The scale of the destruction was massive, but it was only the beginning. The human fleet moved as one, a well-coordinated force that seemed to anticipate every move the alien fleet made. Human tactics, honed through years of preparation and secrecy, proved to be more than a match for the alien arrogance. They weren't the weak species the aliens had once thought them to be. They were a force to be reckoned with. In the heart of the chaos, Commander Evelyn Rise watched the battle unfold from her flagship, her eyes narrowed with focused intensity. She knew this was their moment. They had fought in silence, hidden in the shadows, and now they were ready to show the galaxy what humanity could do. She had been calm, even during the darkest times, but now, as the human fleet began to dismantle the alien forces, a sense of pride filled her heart. They weren't just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting for their place in the galaxy. On the battlefield, the aliens were struggling to regroup. Their superior technology had been turned against them, and their arrogance had blinded them to the true power of humanity. The human ships were not only more advanced, but they also fought with a fierce determination. Each shot fired from the human fleet felt like a statement. Each missile launched like a declaration of defiance. They weren't fighting just for themselves. They were fighting for Earth, for their families, for everything they held dear. But despite the overwhelming power of the human fleet, one alien force refused to back down. General Zorak, the commander of the Galactic Council's flagship. Zorak had been the one who had mocked humanity at the beginning, the one who had called them weak. He had underestimated them, but now, as his flagship took direct hits from the human fleet, he was determined to fight until the end. His ship was heavily damaged, but he was not ready to surrender. His pride would not allow it. Humanity will fall. Zorak roared, his voice filled with fury as he stared out at the battle unfolding. You will all be crushed beneath the weight of the galaxy's might. This war is not over. Reyes watched him from the holographic feed, her expression cool and resolute. She could hear the anger in Zorak's voice, but it didn't faze her. She knew exactly what she had to do. Zorak, Reyes replied calmly, her voice steady. You started this war. Now, it ends. The command was given, and with the flick of a switch, the human fleet directed its firepower towards Zorak's flagship. The once mighty alien vessel, massive and imposing, now seemed small and vulnerable in comparison to the fury of the human assault. The plasma cannons fired, striking the flagship's shields and battering the alien defenses. The alien ships surrounding Zorak's flagship attempted to shield their leader's vessel, but they were quickly overwhelmed by the relentless power of the human fleet. The alien forces attempted to regroup, but their pride had led them into a trap. They had underestimated humanity's resolve, and now they were paying the price. Explosions rocked the alien flagship as the human fleet focused their firepower on it, each strike eroding the once impenetrable shields. The alien fleet began to fall apart, their coordinated efforts slipping into chaos. The alien generals were in disarray, their command structure breaking down as their ships were systematically torn apart by the human assault. Inside Zorak's flagship, panic spread among the alien forces. The ship was no longer the invincible fortress it had once been. The hull groaned under the assault, and the lights flickered as internal systems began to fail. Zorak himself, standing in the command center, watched in horror as his fleet was torn to pieces. His once grand vision of victory was now crumbling before his eyes. But even as his flagship was nearing its breaking point, Zorak refused to accept defeat. "We will not surrender," he shouted, slamming his fist down on the console. "We will fight to the last ship." Reyes, watching the unfolding chaos, gave a nod to her crew. "Bring it down," she ordered, her voice calm but unwavering. "Let's end this." With a final barrage of plasma fire, the human fleet unleashed everything they had left. The flagship of Zorak, once the pride of the Galactic Council, was hit by a barrage of missile fire, plasma blasts, and laser beams. The massive ship shuddered under the weight of the assault, its shields finally giving way under the relentless barrage. Explosions erupted from within, and Zorak's flagship began to disintegrate, its once glorious form breaking apart in a fiery blaze. Zorak's final words were lost to the vast emptiness of space, drowned out by the explosion of his flagship. His pride had led to his undoing, and in the end, it was humanity's strength, unity, and determination that had triumphed. As the dust settled, and the final remnants of the alien fleet were obliterated, the human fleet stood victorious. The battle was won, but the war was far from over. The galaxy had been forced to acknowledge humanity's strength. But what would happen next? Would the aliens learn from this defeat, or would they seek revenge? The answers remained to be seen. But for now, humanity had proven that they were not the weak species the galaxy had once thought them to be. They had shown their true power, and no one would ever underestimate them again. The remaining forces of the Galactic Council, battered and bruised from the earlier clashes, had regrouped and entered Earth's orbit for one last stand. The space around Earth had become a war zone, with explosions lighting up the darkness of space. Debris from destroyed ships floated like confetti, evidence of the fierce battle that had unfolded. Humanity's fleet, although victorious so far, was far from unscathed, and both sides were pushing themselves to the limits in this climactic showdown. The sky was alive with chaos. Human warships, their hulls scorched from previous combat, maneuvered with deadly precision, locking onto alien targets. Plasma cannons fired in rapid succession, their glowing blue bolts streaking across space. Alien warships retaliated with their own powerful lasers, sending blasts of energy that ricocheted off the hulls of the human ships. The distant hum of engines mixed with the roar of explosions, creating a symphony of destruction as both sides fought to control the outcome. Amid the chaos, Commander Evelyn Reyes stood at the helm of the flagship, her steely eyes fixed on the battle unfolding before her. She had seen many battles in her life, but none like this. This was more than just a war. This was humanity's final stand, their chance to show the galaxy who they really were. She clenched her fists, her focus unshakable. There was no turning back now. This battle would define the future of Earth and her people. As the fight raged on, the human fleet slowly began to gain the upper hand. Alien ships, once so confident and powerful, now struggled to keep up with the relentless offensive of humanity's fleet. The human forces were no longer just defending. They were attacking with a fury that had been building for years in secret. The aliens had underestimated them, and now they were paying the price. But even in the face of their losses, the aliens weren't going to give up without a fight. The remaining ships in the Galactic Council's fleet were determined to push through. Among them was Zorak's flagship, still intact, though battered from the earlier assault. The alien general had made it clear he wouldn't retreat, and he had one last trick up his sleeve. Reinforcements were on their way. Another wave of advanced ships that could turn the tide of battle in the Council's favor. Reyes knew that the battle wasn't over yet. She had one last obstacle to overcome, the final wave of alien reinforcements. If they didn't stop it, the Galactic Council would regroup and attack Earth once more. The fate of humanity was still in the balance. That's when Lieutenant Jackson, one of the bravest soldiers in the human fleet, stepped forward. He had been part of the operation from the very beginning, and he understood the stakes better than anyone. "Commander, give me a shot at their reinforcements," he said, his voice steady despite the chaos surrounding him. Reyes hesitated, knowing what it would cost. "Jackson, no, it's too dangerous. I know what's at stake. We end this now, or they'll come back stronger," Jackson replied. There was no fear in his eyes, only resolve. With a grim nod, Reyes gave him the go-ahead. Jackson and his team boarded one of the human assault ships, prepared to take on the alien reinforcements head-on. The ship rocketed toward the alien fleet, dodging plasma fire as it drew closer to the incoming ships. The alien fleet, unaware of the impending attack, was still regrouping when Jackson's team made their move. With expert precision, they launched a devastating assault, targeting key sections of the reinforcements. Explosions erupted as the alien ships took hit after hit. Jackson and his team fought like there was no tomorrow, knowing that their sacrifice would be the turning point in the battle. They disabled the alien ships one by one, buying time for the human fleet to focus on the remaining forces. But Jackson's ship took a heavy blow during the assault. The engines sputtered, and alarms blared as the vessel began to break apart. Jackson knew it was the end, but he didn't hesitate. He activated the ship's self-destruct mechanism, ensuring that the alien reinforcements would never reach Earth. The explosion was massive, the shockwave rippling through the battlefield. The alien reinforcements were completely wiped out, their ships reduced to fiery debris. Humanity's fleet had won a decisive victory, but at a great cost. Jackson's sacrifice had ensured that Earth would survive, but it was a painful reminder of what the soldiers were willing to do to protect their home. As the battle continued, the focus shifted back to Zorak's flagship. The alien general, now enraged and desperate, had no choice but to face the human forces directly. His pride had led him to this point, and he wasn't about to back down. He commanded his remaining forces to protect his ship at all costs. On board the human flagship, Reyes knew that the final blow was approaching. She had to end this battle once and for all. She gave the order for a full-scale assault on Zorak's flagship. The remaining human ships moved in, firing their weapons with deadly accuracy. Zorak's ship retaliated, launching everything it had in a last-ditch effort to survive. The two forces collided in a final clash of might, with the fate of the galaxy hanging in the balance. Zorak's ship, now heavily damaged, tried to fight back with all its remaining power, but the human fleet was relentless. With each attack, they chipped away at the alien flagship, slowly rendering it useless. The once imposing ship now looked like a floating wreck, its shields cracked and its weapons failing. Then, in a final act of defiance, Zorak made his last stand. He led his remaining forces in a desperate hand-to-hand assault against the human soldiers boarding his ship. The humans fought with everything they had, not just for their lives, but for the survival of their entire species. The alien forces were strong, but the human soldiers were driven by a deep sense of purpose, a desire to protect their homes and their loved ones. The fighting was fierce, with soldiers clashing in narrow hallways, weapons drawn and fists flying. But it wasn't just strength that won the day. It was the unbreakable spirit of the humans. Zorak and his forces fought with desperation, but the humans fought with everything they had left. The tide had turned, and the end was near. As the battle reached its peak, Zorak was cornered in the heart of his flagship. His once mighty forces had been decimated, and there was nowhere left for him to run. In a final act of defiance, he attempted to launch a last-ditch attack on Earth, but it was too late. A human soldier, driven by the memory of all those who had fallen, took the final shot. Zorak's flagship erupted in a massive explosion, signaling the end of the Galactic Council's reign. With his death, the remaining alien forces realized that they had lost. There was no coming back from this. The human fleet stood victorious. The remnants of the alien forces, broken and leaderless, retreated, knowing that they could never again underestimate humanity. Earth had shown them the full extent of human power, their strength, their unity, and their will to fight for survival. The final battle was over. Humanity had proven its place in the galaxy, but as the dust settled and the battle came to an end, one thing was clear. Earth had not only survived, but had emerged stronger than ever before. The galaxy would never forget the power of humanity. The battlefield above Earth, once filled with the chaos of explosions and the hum of battle, was now eerily quiet. What was left of the alien forces floated like lifeless husks in space, their warships shattered and drifting aimlessly. Humanity's fleet, battered but victorious, hovered in the void, a symbol of their triumph. The bright, glimmering hulls of the human ships stood tall against the wreckage, their weapons now silent, their missions complete. Commander Evelyn Rice stood on the bridge of the flagship, her eyes staring out at the remnants of the Galactic Council's fleet. There was no time for celebration. There was only the overwhelming weight of what had been achieved. Earth had not only survived, but it had defeated the might of a galactic empire that had once thought them insignificant. Humanity had proven itself, and in doing so, it had awakened something deep within the galaxy, a sense of awe and fear. The war was over, but the story of humanity's rise was far from finished. Rise took a deep breath, her fingers brushing against the command console. The moment she had prepared for had arrived. She was about to speak to the entire galaxy, to declare to the Council of Alien Empires that Earth was no longer to be underestimated, that humanity was no longer a vulnerable target to be crushed. With the warship standing as a powerful testament to human strength, she walked to the central podium on the bridge, her voice steady, but filled with the power of a commander who had seen the impossible become a reality. People of the galaxy, she began, her voice carrying through the comm channels. For too long, Earth has been seen as a weak and insignificant species, a stepping stone for your empires to trample over. You laughed at us. You mocked us. But today, humanity stands as a force you cannot ignore. The sound of her words resonated across the galaxy, reaching every corner of space, every alien civilization that had once doubted human capabilities. Her words were not just a victory speech. They were a declaration, a warning. Humanity had proven that it would not be subjugated. It would not bow to anyone. We are not your slaves, and we are not your tools, she continued. We are the inheritors of this planet, and we have fought for its future. We have shown you the strength that lies within us, and now we will decide our destiny. Rice paused, letting her words sink in. There was no pride in her tone, only the quiet satisfaction of knowing that Earth had turned the tide of the battle and had secured its place in the galaxy. Let this be the first and last lesson you learn, she said, her gaze unwavering. Underestimate humanity again, and you will face the consequences. We are no longer afraid. We are no longer alone. Earth will not bend, and Earth will never fall. As her speech ended, the galaxy held its breath. Alien civilizations, once so sure of their superiority, now realized that the humans they had overlooked had become something they would have to reckon with. The war was over, but a new chapter had begun. The universe would never be the same. The visual spectacle of Earth's fleet floating triumphantly in space, surrounded by the wreckage of the once mighty alien forces, was a fitting backdrop to Raya's words. The camera zoomed in on the gleaming hulls of human warships, their weapons silent but their presence loud. The human fleet had been through hell, but it stood as a symbol of resilience, unity, and strength. Yet, despite their victory, a sense of uncertainty lingered in the air. There was a new kind of silence that followed the destruction of the alien fleets. The galaxy had been shaken to its core. No one, not even the most powerful empires, could ignore the message that Earth had sent. Humanity, once considered nothing more than a primitive species, had just toppled an empire. But the victory came at a cost, and it was clear that this battle would not be the last. As humanity celebrated its hard-earned victory, there were those in the galaxy who were far from pleased. From a distant corner of the universe, beyond the reaches of known space, a new, unknown species watched Earth's celebrations through the eyes of their advanced technology. Their ships, sleek and mysterious, hovered on the edge of the galaxy, hidden from view but ever watchful. They had seen the power of humanity, and they had felt the tremor of the battle that had shaken the galaxy. One of the aliens, a figure obscured in shadows, turned to the others in the dimly lit command center. His voice was cold and filled with an unsettling certainty. "They are not done yet," he said, his words sending a chill through the room. "This victory has only just begun. Humanity will become a threat. We must prepare." His ominous words sent ripples of unease through the group. The war with the Galactic Council may have ended, but it had opened a door to a new, even greater conflict. The galaxy would not stand idly by as Earth rose to power. There would be others who would come for Earth, to challenge its newfound strength, to test its resolve. The threat of a new enemy loomed large. Back on Earth, as the celebrations carried on, Reyes stood in quiet reflection. She knew the road ahead would not be easy. The galaxy had just witnessed humanity's strength, but there were many in the universe who would view Earth's rise as a threat. And they would come. Earth would have to be ready. The final shot zoomed out from Earth, showing the vastness of the galaxy. Stars twinkled in the darkness, countless and distant. The galaxy was massive, its mysteries endless. And within that galaxy, Earth now stood, not as an insignificant speck, but as a force that had made its mark. But as the camera continued to pull away, the camera caught sight of the mysterious alien ships, distant and unknown. As they disappeared into the blackness of space, the fate of Earth was far from certain. This victory was only the beginning. Humanity had awakened, and the galaxy had noticed. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Earth was no longer a footnote in the universe's history. It was a force to be reckoned with, and the galaxy would never forget the day humanity stood up and declared its place in the stars. As the screen faded to black, the final words echoed. "They are not done yet." The war may have ended, but the true test for Earth was just beginning.